Committee of Kerala when it is revising and planning its curriculum revision. I know what these challenges are, how states have to look at it, especially because the first change that is coming in and the first centralization that has come in is at the higher education level. All admissions in universities now through common tests. We know what the problems are. Tamil Nadu had been raising it even earlier for NEET and other common entrance tests, that how only some people, कुछ संपन्न घरों से बच्चे, कुछ ऐसे घरों से जो कि कोचिंग भी अफोर्ड कर सकते हैं, वो लोग कैसे उन जॉइंट एंट्रेंस टेस्ट में आगे आ सकते हैं, और उसी स्टेट के लोग जो कि उतने संपन्न घरों से नहीं होंगे या वंचित या disadvantaged homes, how those children get very, very seriously impacted by these centralized joint entrance tests, and Tamil Nadu has stood its ground, but we know what is happening there. So this was the first instance officially when it became clear to us what was coming. I mean, in Karnataka, if we read even today, we are shocked, the kind of statements by experts, so-called experts, from a well-known institution saying that the Indian physiology is not made for non-vegetarian food. I mean, can anyone say that? Anyone so-called experts say that when more than 70% of Indians survive on non-vegetarian food? How can you make a statement like this in the public domain and then say that in the midday meal we cannot give an egg to a child? Not only that, in Karnataka, well-known organizations, and I will come to this, the role of corporate foundations which have now completely taken over education. The whole terrain of policy implementation not only is happening through right-wing groups which have their own agenda, their own ideological agenda, but it's also the economic right-wing which is coming in, the neoliberal corporates which have set up their foundations and are now participating in the entire implementation of the policy. So there is an NGO called Akshay Patra in Karnataka which provides food to 20,000 schools. The exact figure I don't remember. And they have this running battle with the state and children because they don't give onions and garlic in the food. Now their own beliefs of what is right food and what is wrong, they impose on children mostly in tribal areas who don't eat that food. They say this is not palatable to us. So I'm just giving one example which might sound like a small example, but this is the way education is being controlled now. You have large corporations, so the state almost outsources things now. I was invited to Rajasthan for the curriculum framework of the state, and I worked with that state over 40 years or more. You know, when they started work in Mahila Samakhya and Lok Jukbesh and Dusra Dashak, there have been so many interesting initiatives in Rajasthan because even the administrators were quite sort of committed to education. But today when I went there, I find that there are corporate foundations, or you just name it. You just name the corporate foundation and they are there. And they're supposed to be partners with SCRT. So there are Kaivalya Foundation, Piramal Foundation, Azim Premji Foundation, Central Square Foundation, Sterlite Foundation, which is involved in mining. But all these are there in the terrain of education and in curriculum making. So what is happening? And public funds now are going, instead of coming into the public system, are going out. Public funds, Andhra Pradesh, and in fact we have been seeing this for the last few years, but especially during the COVID and after that, all these forces have come together, you know, the industry, the government, the whole thrust of trying to centralize education, as we know. We know that the national education policy came in right in the middle of a COVID. And that COVID was devastating for most of our children, for most of our people. We can never forget what we saw during that time. And in that time, to push something like a policy without any deliberation, without any discussion, itself was a major tryst with what our education policies have normally stood for. अंग्रेजी में बोलूं, थोड़ा हिंदी में बोलूं, कैसा ठीक रहेगा? मिला के बोलूं, ठीक है। तो जो जिस तरह की नीति 2020 में आई है, केवल वो ही हमें दिक्कत नहीं दे रही, पर उसके नाम पर बहुत कुछ हो रहा है। जो उसमें नहीं भी लिखा वो भी हो रहा है। जो नीति के नाम पे, जैसे NEP 2020, उसके साथ G20, ये दोनों चीजें लिखी हुई आती हैं और शिक्षा के सर्कुलर आते हैं। तो इनका क्या संबंध है वो तो हम जानते नहीं, पर कहने का मतलब ये है कि एक मौका मिल जाता है, एक बैनर मिल जाता है, और उस बैनर के अंदर जो भी करना है वो हो रहा है। अभी हर रोज यूनिवर्सिटीज में तो बहुत पहले शुरू हो गया, ये स्कूल में अभी भी, क्योंकि स्टेट्स को भी इन्वॉल्व करना है। स्टेट्स हैव टू बी केप्ट ऑन द, द स्टेट्स आर बीइंग ऑलमोस्ट डिक्टेटेड टू व्हाट शुड बी डन, and this is not in consonance with our constitution. We clearly know that education is a concurrent subject. राज्य भी साथ मिलकर अपना पाठ्यक्रम बनाते हैं, अपनी शिक्षा का पूरा प्रबंधन तय करते हैं। और ये पॉलिसी हमको दिखा रही थी, क्योंकि ये पॉलिसी कह रही थी, एक तो कोई भी पॉलिसी आती है, और क्योंकि हम लोग पॉलिसी बनाने में भी पहले शामिल थे, I teach policy, so we read policy, and we have never seen a policy like this which does not at all acknowledge what has happened in the last few years. We are talking of 75 years of independence, but the policy just does not acknowledge anything, does not acknowledge even what has happened in the last 36 years, does not acknowledge what has happened, the most significant struggle in education which many of us were involved, the right to education. It is a fundamental right to education. It's a constitutional right to education for children 6 to 14, which came 60 years after the constitution had actually provided for free and compulsory education. उसका भी जिक्र नहीं है, एक जगह पे जिक्र है शुरू में, बिल्कुल शुरू में, और उसके बाद जो पूरी नीति बता रही है वो उस अधिकार के खिलाफ है. It actually opposes what the right to education has provided for in every way. So how can a policy come like this? And how is it that during the COVID it set up a completely online mechanism to involve states and actually to dictate to states what they should be doing? Never before have states been forced to make position papers. 25 position papers, all listed. The titles of the position papers have come from the center. How? This has never happened before. Last time when the National Curriculum Framework 2005 came, at that time NCERT had decided that we will bring out 25 position papers, 21 position papers, और देश के सभी लोग 300-400 लोग देश के उस पूरी प्रक्रिया में जुड़े थे, ताकि देश की जो देश में शिक्षा की जो समस्याएं हैं, चुनौतियां हैं, उपलब्धियां हैं, वो सब भी एक साथ मिलकर उन टाइटल्स, उन विषयों के अंतर्गत विमर्श हो सके. Basically, it was meant to guide us towards a new position, to a new curriculum framework, and also that was that was actually a participatory process. We have not had that kind of process in which so many of us were involved. But this time it was just the opposite. The center dictates to the states. It actually sends them that you have to make these 25 position papers. Why should the state use all its resources and time and effort to be making these position papers? States can decide if they need any position paper. Why should they do that? Not only that, it actually spells out. I mean, it says you ask these questions. So the questions are given on every theme, and you give answers. You write this in 150 words. And we have never seen such a micro-managed design of trying to get states involved in their own curriculum making. So this is how it started, and it was very clear which direction we were taking. And the sort of most damaging outcome of all this was in Karnataka. It was almost like the laboratory where this was being done. I believe Tripura also says that this is one of the laboratories, but the way Karnataka worked was quite shocking. There were 25 position papers, and I had to read them because someone wanted me to critique and write about it, which I did. But it was shocking in the way those were written. Completely false statements, completely untrue statements under the name of so-called experts from well-known institutions. So this was the way it was all planned, and also the committee which was made for these position papers had the former education secretary as chairperson and a senior professor from Azim Premji University. Both of them were jointly organizing that. And if you read the kind of nonsense that was written there, we can't believe that this is in the public domain. It's on the website of the State Council of Educational Research and Training. So we are relieved now, and all of us have pressed the new government in Karnataka to take a step, because in their manifesto